Hey guys, in this video I want to show you how to contribute to source code on GitHub. So far you guys have created a GitHub account and we committed our 4-screen application to GitHub as an open source project. So I'm going to take this from scratch here. And in our meeting yesterday we talked about this a little bit on how do you actually get the code down to your system. So I'm going to go ahead and try to do this on a fresh system here. This is a new machine that I have. It has nothing on it. It's a Windows machine, and I'm not logged into GitHub yet. I'm going to go ahead and just go to town and try to get this set up. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to sign into GitHub. So I'm going to go ahead and sign in with my account. And let's go ahead and get this going. Okay, once we're logged into GitHub, we can go to our Galactic Jedi Space Pod Masters 4-screen program there, which will probably be along the side here. Or you could just search for Galactic Jedi Space Pod Masters, and it'll come up. You probably should see it right away. And then we can click on Projects, and you can see that we have, we click on Repositories, and you can see that we have the 4-screen repository here. If we click on that, this is our code base. So this contains all the code we need to run this bad boy. Now, there are a bunch of different programs we can use to connect to GitHub, but GitHub really in and of itself is just a service that sits on top of a technology called Git. And Git is what we call a version control system. It's super simple. All it does is keeps track of changes of code as we make changes. So one of the big things that we talk about in FIRST Robotics is how do you iterate on your ideas? How do you make them better over time? So when you're in any type of engineering discipline, and probably anything, is you want to keep track of what you change over time. Git is a tool that enables us as software developers to do that as a team. So we can work together, change our code, and build software products collaboratively. And GitHub is just really a service on top of that Git system. You don't have to use GitHub to use Git, but GitHub does use Git, if that makes sense. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to use GitHub's desktop application to clone down this code. It's going to make it a lot easier. As you get more advanced, you may find that you want to just use the command line application for Git, which is what a lot of developers use. But if we go here to code and we drop this down and you could say here, open with GitHub desktop. So let's go ahead and see what this does. Honestly, this is the first time I'm using GitHub desktop myself. So let's see what this looks like. So I'm going to go ahead and download for Windows. This is going to go ahead and download the program, and it's downloading up here. It's about 137 megs. Okay, let's go ahead and open that now. And this is going to go ahead and run the installer. Hub desktop. Okay, so this is going to also ask us to sign into GitHub. So awesome, we're already signed in here. It's going to say, hey, do you want GitHub desktop to access your repositories and your organizations? And we could say authorize desktop and open GitHub desktop. And this is going to pull in our GitHub name and email address, which is going to be used when we write commits to our code. So just keep that in mind. Probably default is fine. We're going to go ahead and click finish. And awesome. So this is a separate program now. I can minimize this and look at this. We have a separate program here. And these are all the repos that I have on GitHub. We want to go ahead and find, in your case, it's probably just going to be one here. I'm just going to go ahead and type force, and there's our force screen. So I'm going to go ahead and click this. And then this little button here that says clone Galactic Jedi Space Pod Masters. It's going to clone it. Now this is telling me the path on my file system where it's going to store the files. So here it's going to this area. I actually want to choose where this is going. You could probably keep it default. I'm going to go ahead and just put this on my desktop for now. And clone. Okay, now what this is doing, this is going out and actually fetching our code. And I'm suspecting this is going to go ahead and show. This doesn't show any of the files. Oh, there we go. We could see our commits here in history. So this is actually pretty nice. It shows the current branch we're on. You could think of this like a tree. We could have different branches and things going on, which is kind of cool. Now, one other program that you'll probably want to use to edit code is called Visual Studio Code. And I already have Visual Studio Code installed. I use it pretty much on a daily basis for my work. But Visual Studio Code, or VS Code for short, if we just Google VS Code, this is a coding environment that a lot of folks use for writing different types of software in multiple different languages. So if you'd like, you can go ahead and download this. You don't need to. You can just open the code in Notepad if you'd like. But this is something that there's a whole world of things to be discovered within Visual Studio Code and all the tools that you can use within it. Now I already have it installed, so I'm going to go ahead and click Open in Visual Studio Code. And it may ask you this, hey, do you trust the authors of this package? We wrote it, so we trust it. It's good to go. I'm going to say trust, yes. And now along the side here, I'm not going to go too deep into like how to use Visual Studio Code, but this is the code now. If you open up app.js, here is the code for the force screen. So this is where you can come in and look at this and see what's going on. You can see we have the off effect, the John effect, and the such an effect, which is what we were talking about yesterday with these ideas of variables and how we store the lighting effect presets in these variables. These are the lighting effects presets that you guys have created. So the contribution that you guys are going to make to this code base is you're going to basically add your own lighting effect to this. So we could do this together too. I don't suspect you to do this all on your own, but I just wanted to kind of capture this just for future reference. If you guys are curious, even after the season's over, you can come back in here and take a look at what you've accomplished. So if we wanted to, for example, add a new effect, say for example, I said let Nick effect, and I'm just going to make it an empty object here. That is valid code there. We can go ahead and make that change. Now I want to show you what this would look like in our version control system. So now if I go back to the GitHub desktop here, and I actually have to save this file, so I'm going to Control S to save it. Now you'll see there is one change, and you see a little plus sign right here where it says plus let Nick effect. Now that means that I just made a change to this. Now typically you'd want to run this before you just commit this code and push it. So before I commit this and push it, let me go ahead and show you how to actually run this, which is kind of a different beast in itself because we need to install some certain pieces of software, and I will use a little bit of command line for this. So this program runs an environment called Node.js. Now, Node.js is a runtime environment that runs JavaScript applications on your computer. So instead of running it within the browser, which is typically where you would run JavaScript, you run it right on your computer itself. We call that server-side code. So this is going to run on the server side. Now, I don't think I have Node.js installed on this machine yet. I'm just going to check that out real quick because I could be mistaken. I don't. So I'm going to go ahead and download Node.js on this machine. So I'm going to click the 20.11 LTS, which stands for long-term support. And we'll go ahead and open that bad boy up. And we'll next through this and install Node.js. Now this includes a little thing called npm, which is a package manager that installs all of our dependencies. All right, everything is installing. Okay. Now that is finished. So now once Node is installed, we can go into our start menu and type PowerShell. And now what we're going to do is we're going to actually change directories into the actual force screen. So we're going to use a little command line here. So it's going to default to your home directory, which is going to look like this. And we're going to go into our, I put this on my desktop, which is going to be in this specific directory here. There's our force screen. Okay, so now we're in our force screen directory, and now we got to do a couple things to get this running. The first thing is we need to install our dependencies. So we're going to do an npm I. That's going to go out and install all of our dependencies for us. Awesome. Now we have everything installed, and now we can go ahead and run our application. So now if we run node app.js, this should start up a little server, and it may say, hey, Node.js is trying to access the network. You can click allow there. And now if we go to this address, boom, we have our controller. And then if we go to /force screen, there we go, we have that. So now if we click forward and back, we have a running force screen application on a brand new machine. So there was a couple of quasi-complicated steps there that may take you some time to get used to. Really the key point is you need to have a GitHub desktop installed, Node.js, and then run those little Node.js commands on the command prompt. Probably the hardest thing is to get to this directory from the command line, which you need to know where you downloaded that force screen application to. So we're going to go over this together too, guys. I just wanted to go ahead and capture this just to give you a little takeaway to come back to if you'd like in the future. All right, have fun. Oh, you know what? Before I disconnect, we actually want to commit our change, right? So we did make a change to this code. I'm going to go ahead and commit this. So for us to commit it, all we have to do is in GitHub Desktop, I'm going to say here, I'm going to describe the change I made, added the nick effect variable, and we can put a little description. I'm going to say added a placeholder to illustrate how to modify our code. Awesome. Excellent. And then all we have to do is say commit to main. We're committing to main. And then we're going to click push to origin to push it up. And that is it. Now, if we go back to GitHub in our project here, you're going to see that just now we have a commit here that says added the nick effect variable, and you can see the exact change that I made and push it up. And we can actually have comments on this. We can talk about it. You can comment specific lines, so you can get really collaborative with this software and how you build software together. All right, have fun. Thanks.